what a resume he has. It's really, I started reading through this and it's incredible. His career in the Army as a colonel, retired as a colonel, did tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's been awarded the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Joint Service Achievement Medal, the Florida Cross, over 33 years of service. And one of the most impressive things in his resume that I saw that really caught my eye is his parents have been married 77 years. Is that right? 77 years of marriage. That's incredible. It's got to be some kind of a record, but I don't want to take too much time away from his presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to please give a warm welcome to Col Calvin Wimbish.
Okay, while Rich get things organized here, I just really want to thank Dave and all who have reached out to me throughout all of last year. I visited just about every Rotary Club throughout Orange County, and I was just really overwhelmed by the love and reception that we had, that I received, regardless of our party affiliation. It wasn't important, it was about our nation. And being here, I served our nation uniform, and then come back and work within corporate. Okay, sorry. Okay, go. And Rance is right here. Okay, gotcha. It's been an honor to be an American first. And that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring out in the subject of my topic today. Put things in perspective in terms of service and sacrifice. I was a school teacher for 5 years, and I was blessed, as he said. In fact, in my presentation, you'll see a little bit about me here. You know, I've been the third of 5 kids, and my dad made sure that if we didn't like the smell of the mule, don't be a fool, stay in school, because they were 2 people from Danville, Virginia. And I don't know who that kid is there, but that's my mom and dad who brought me into this world, and was born at home. So I didn't have an opportunity of a hospital, but they also gave us resilience and faith, courage and honor and respect, and all the things that I wish that today's leaders or leaderless people who are in power would kind of convey down to the young people of today. And many of us throughout this group here, we were either denied or not given the opportunity to see, understand, and feel the truth as what people of color, and I hate the color black, because on my birth certificate, believe it or not, I was going to put a picture of it up there. It says I'm colored. Then they went to African American. Then they said, no, let's go black. And then if you're Indian, you're red. And if you're Oriental, you're yellow. And I'm saying, what's up? I don't mind my car and my house and my floor and my paintings, but we've labeled human beings when we are all created in God's image. It's not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. Many greater people than I have said, including Martin Luther King. It's the content of character that matters. And here I am standing in front of General Sullivan as the #1 cadet at the Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. As the out of 5,000 cadets, I finished #1, went to a historical Black university, Morgan State College, which is now Morgan State University, which incidentally has produced over 1,300 Black officers, of which many of them have gone on to flag level, 1 star, all the way up to 4 star. And I got a couple of them I'll share with you today. And it was an honor when my mom and dad said, boy, this kid from the inner city of Baltimore who wasn't supposed to make it, kind of got there, went ahead of my slides there. And I achieved success and went on through college. My 2 brothers and I, we served. My elder brother went right from high school, right into the Air Force, 26 years. Little brother, the light skin, went on the right. I keep saying he looks more like dad than me. I was not as privileged as he was in terms of that glow that he had about his face there, but he looks more like dad. But he dropped out of high school against the philosophy dad said, stay in school, don't be a fool, because we would go to Danville, Virginia every summer. Right after school ended in June, we were left there at my uncle's farm, and my parents didn't pick us up until Labor Day. So every morning we had to get up at 4 a.m. and get behind a mule or go out and milk the cows. The girls had to turn the buttermilk and get the eggs. And then you had to learn how to, you know, if you have to get fried chicken, you have to kill the chicken. But we learn values, basic sense. I think all of us here know the common sense values that our fathers went through, grandfathers, and I was not fortunate. My parents died before they were even adults. So I never knew grandparents beyond, being a grandfather today. But my two brothers and I, we persevered. And the little brother, I finally kicked him into the Army. He did 25 years, went from private all the way up to Warrant Officer W3, and became a Night Stalker with the famous Night Stalkers, and went to Iraq and received the Bronze Star. Now married, has 100 acres of land up there in Halifax County, Virginia. And now he's a good old farm boy. And I call him sometimes, "What are you doing?" He says, "Nothing." I said, "What do you mean nothing?" I said, "What's that noise?" "I'm riding my tractor." I said, "Oh, really?" Because he made it out of the inner city. And, no woe is me, because Dad would pluck us in the head when we say woe is me, why we're born in inner city, why we have this, the schools suck. We have poor education, the books are hand-me-downs, the teachers didn't care about us. But Dad and Mom always says, rise above your circumstances. We gave you life. That's your first opportunity. And as long as you believe in the God Almighty, He will order your steps each and every day. And there are great people and George Washington Carver and the Tuskegee Airmen, et cetera, that people hear about, because there's so many that gave their life, even back in the 18th century, 1770. I'm going to show you a little bit where Blacks were willing to sacrifice regardless of the fact that they were amongst many who were white. So I just hate this divisiveness that continues in our society. And that's what's dividing us as a nation. If we can come together, just imagine your hand and you want to get some water out of a running brook. And if you keep your fingers open, you're not going to get much water. You'll be out there all day. You cup it, you can get a little bit. But if you could bring it together, how much beautiful it is when you can really understand the beauty of fresh water down the stream. That's where America has gone away from. We need to bring it back again. I said all of that just to say, here's my wife and I at an event, and I was blessed to rise to the rank of colonel, as he said. Could have went to a general officer, but at that point in time, my life was changing. I worked for Merck Pharmaceuticals, Eli Lilly Pharmaceuticals, Mobil Oil, got a variety of crafts and skills while I got my second master's degree in teacher leadership and education, and went on to pursue happiness. So here I am today. As you know, I ran for Congress, but as my pastor told me, it's not a failure. It's not a setback. If you believe in what God has put before you, you believe in yourself, as we as Rotarians do, above oneself, there's nothing impossible. The probability is there. How willing are you to step up and hit the ball? As I remember Hank Aaron, and I remember what Babe Ruth did. Babe Ruth, he was the home run king, but many students don't know he was also the strikeout king. And Abraham Lincoln, how many times did he run for president? Let me see. Was it 14? He didn't give up. And how many times, as I was told by my pastor, did Joshua have to walk around the wall? 7. He says, well, you got another turn to go, young man. So I'm going to continue to believe and have faith in God that tomorrow becomes today, and it's his glory that I'll be able to aspire to be something that I'm not. So let me take you to the next one here. Let's see here. Here we go. 7 points of integrity. I believe that life revolves around 7 principles. And I think integrity is the number 1 principle. Like Rotarians, we have our 4-way truths. And those, to me, it really brings that out. Because without integrity, you don't have much of anything. When I say about integrity, let's talk about, what that really means. Up here, if you can read it. Integrity, always place the mission first, never accept defeat, never quit, never leave a fallen comrade, and to always do what is legally and morally right. Too many people are good at lying, but the truth may be that it always has set you free. I know it has for me. I remember the little lie I called, back in the day, and we used to call them white lies, black lies, whatever the lie, but when Daddy pulled out that little belt, you realize that it wasn't worth it. So you just didn't want to get caught short. Integrity is represented by the ABC of my umbrella. Just imagine an umbrella. And it encompasses all the other values that I'm going to speak to for a second here. And integrity also is the handle. that glues it all together. So when I take it down the line, loyalty, that is what we pledge to give to the Constitution, military, our units, and others. This is from the Army 7 core values. Then you have duty, which is to fulfill our obligations and never take shortcuts. And too many of us do take shortcuts. And when we don't pay attention, like we're going down the road, you wind up having an accident, or you may hurt or kill someone. We need to not take shortcuts in life because, you know, you are given the opportunity to do the best that you can each and every day of your life. Start today and every day and pass it on to your grandchildren as well. Then you have respect, to always treat others with dignity and respect. And yet, when I was a teacher, how sad it was when I would try to stop students who were talking down to their teachers and assistants in the hallways and disrespecting the young girls and the boys with their pants down below their butt. And sometimes the girls with their dresses too high, and you try to discipline them. And then I get sometimes chastised, well, you can't be so hard on them, let them express themselves. Not in this manner. You try to teach them, integrity, that, this is not the way your parents, I bet you when they leave the house, their pants are up, their skirts are down, but once they're out, they go up and they go the wrong way. We have to have that type of attitude put back into our young people. And unfortunately, respect is lost. And those who are not allowing it to come alive in the schools are causing this trend to continue. There are great students. I had so many students that were appalled by their comrades, but they were always shunned and shut down. And so the system has got to be changed. And I hope that over time, good people who are now working within the school system will begin to recognize we need to revive America. We need to bring God back into the schools, and we need to start having respect. Then you have to worry about selfless service, which all of us Rotarians are all about selfless service. Putting the welfare of the country, the armed services or subordinates before ourselves. Be willing to go into harm's way, and if need be, take a bullet. One of the things that I also talked about is honor. And honor is to never lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. And there you'll see it always place the mission first. Never accept defeat, never quit, never leave a fallen comrade, and to always do what is legally and morally correct again. Because with honor, you don't have nothing to worry about. But too many people don't know what that word honor really means. And so they disrespect their parents, they disrespect their employer, they disrespect their team leader. In combat, bullets don't discriminate. I don't care what color you are, what your gender is. And there's only 2 genders according to what I've been able to find. And every archaeologist has told me is male and female, and that's it. So, but if your altitude of your attitude and the attitude of gratitude is missing, we can talk to somebody who can help get you back on the right path. But that's one of the problems that we have in society. Everybody wants everything, but nobody wants to do the right thing. We have to change that. Then you have to look at the personal courage. And that when under fire, it causes one to advance into harm's way, bravely to face physical, moral danger and adversity without hesitation or fear, in work and worrying about ourselves and them, and then without hesitation, take whatever actions are required to protect and save a comrade or an innocent non-combatant. And that's, I think about the policeman out here on the street every day. The sad killing of that 9-year-old last night in Pine Hills. The officers that keep falling all over the country. Our servicemen and women who, like me, went to Afghanistan, and I cried when those 13 young men and women were murdered there at Kabul airport. I had walked through those gates so many times. And the weeks before that, when I saw the Afghanistan commandos, which I trained in 2011 and 12, and then on through till 15, were sadly murdered in the very courtyard by the Taliban. And it broke my heart, which was another catalyst for me to run for office, because I said, enough's enough. If you don't love America, leave America. But if you do something positive to make it stronger. We can't, just let our country fall apart. Well, I can say this today, that ever since back in history, we have a lot of people who have gone forward and for their nation. This is just a little statistic about the ethnicity of Black, white, and Hispanics in the U.S. military ranks. The top line is the total active duty, then it has senior enlisted warrant officer and officers. And yes, we have not had a tremendous percentage of those in rank, but we have contributed. And that's better than saying we have done nothing. Unfortunately, a lot of the great people who I believe students ought to hear about, regardless of where you come from, ought to be made available in the textbooks, in the hallways. It's out there in the internet, but sometimes it's buried so deep, it's in the deep state that you can't find it. But if I can find it, I know that the young people can find it as well. Let me first talk about Crispus Attucks. Everybody remember that incident that occurred when the British officer decided he wasn't going to pay for his haircut, I guess, a barber. And a bunch of the colonists got with the young boy and they protested. And Crispus was a Black guy that happened to be the first person that got shot. But he wasn't afraid at the time because even though he may have been deemed a slave, he was willing to fight for the justice. And our American system, our Constitution, looks for liberty and justice for all. So he was one of the first persons that I wanted to at least go back and say, how far back has Black stood up for America? And eventually during the Revolutionary War, as many of you historians know, we had many Blacks that fought on both sides. In the Revolutionary War, it helped the British, and unfortunately, and also in the Civil War, the same thing happened as well. Let's talk about the next generation of the Buffalo Soldier. I'm a Buffalo Soldier. I'm a member of the organization, and they got their ruggedness and their reputation from the American Indians who like the curly hair, their buffalo hide that they wore to keep them warm in the winter, and also the fact that they were tireless in their effort. But they were the soldiers, the 10th Cavalry you hear about, and George Custer, and how they went out, and they weren't afraid. They were willing to work, live, and fight for the right of this nation. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know, there was the first African-American woman, the only female Buffalo soldier. Her name was Catherine Williams. I didn't even know this until I just started doing some research. And back in 2005, the last living Buffalo soldier that had served back with Benjamin O. Davis, Steve Lewis, passed away, and he died at 111 years old. So he brought some great spirit and opportunity for young Blacks who don't know how to get into the game of supporting your nation. I think when I got my draft notice, I had it, but I also had a chance to go to college. My older brother literally beat me up and says, "You're going to go to college," because I'm already in the military. I said, "You can't tell me what to do." I said, "Okay, I'm going to go to college." So I was the first in my family. And but I went on and pursued my ROTC and got my commission as a second lieutenant. Here's another one, the Hellfighters, the 369th Infantry Harlem Group. They were among the first U.S. regiment to arrive in France in World War I. General Blackjack Pershing was the general back then who was known for the number of Blacks that went to war, but they were one of the most decorated when it came to fighting against the Germans. And they helped repel the German offensive and launched a counteroffensive. The Harlem Hellfighters fought at Chateau Thierry and Belleau Wood with a total of 191 days in combat. And they also received one of the highest awards from the French government. Great group of guys, and their Colonel William Hayward, though he reluctantly took the command, he was proud of what they all did for America during World War I. Doris Miller. A lot of people don't know his real name was Doris, not Dory Miller, but remember what he did in Pearl Harbor. And he was, when his captain was injured, he got behind that big machine gun and he took on the Japanese as best he could on attack of Pearl Harbor. And assisted in moving his captain, and then mortally wounded, he placed the greatest safety, and later man that had operated a machine gun directed at the enemy Japanese. He was later killed in 2 years later on a ship, the USS Liscombe Bay, and when a torpedo. But everybody have probably heard about him in a lot of the movies. World War II symbolizes him as a hero and for Blacks. Benjamin O. Davis Sr., he was the first African-American general in the Army and actually in the military. He was once part of the famed Buffalo Soldiers, and he retained the rank, first star rank. And that was back in the time when they had discrimination, obviously, in the military, but I'm glad about the one thing about America, it progresses towards positive change. And there's times we have pauses, and we have people who cause those pauses, either out of selfishness or stupidity, I call it, because there's ignorant, dumb, and stupid. And sometimes, some people don't know the difference. Ignorant, no one has ever told you. Dumb is you knew better, but you did it anyway. And stupid is you may have a psychological or emotional or physiological issue. But sometimes we get mixed up in those who are in power to lead our nation. But such was, as you can see in the highlighted areas, such was a situation for Black officers in that day. But later, little did he know that his son, who went on to West Point, that was Benjamin O. Davis Jr., would rise to the rank of 4-star. And as you can see, he did 33 years, like I did 33 years as well, but his was all continuous. He was able to get it up. And after he left West Point, he was shunned by his classmates. He was actually, 35th out of 276 in his class. But it took him a long time in his career before they allowed him to go to flight school. So they say, why don't you go down to Tuskegee and start some training down there? So he started up the Tuskegee Airmen. And guess what? He was able to, with a little perseverance and tenacity and persuasive ability with Eleanor Roosevelt, et cetera, get the, as you heard about the famous Red Tails, out there to Berlin, and was able to get those aircraft, those bombers across, and be able to help end the war without a single loss of his craft. So I'm very honored to have met him personally. And he was one of the 2 generals that penned me as a second lieutenant at Morgan State in 1971. Then you have Samuel L. Gravely. I think we got some Navy guys in the group here. And he was the first African-American admiral in the Navy, vice admiral. And you can see the litany of what he's done. But the bottom line is that he was the first Black to command a U.S. fleet. That was the 3rd Fleet. When I saw his impressive record, I said, wow, I could be reading for hours, but I know that you don't have hours, so we just keep moving forward. But these are great people that I didn't hear about in school. And I'm saying, why not? And I think it's part of those who write the books and control. That's why we'd have to be involved with our school board. Let's let the evidence, whether Hispanic or Black, let it come forth. And then let the students know what really is behind our great culture called America. For you Marines in the room, General Frank F. Peterson, who was inspired, I think a new movie just came out about Korea and the first Black Navy pilot. That was Jesse Brown, and just came out about maybe a month ago. He was inspired by Jesse Brown, who fought in the Korean War and gave his life so that they could take on the North Koreans. And by February 23, 1979, he was promoted to Brigadier General and being the first Black general in the Marine Corps. For the ladies in the house, a lot of ladies didn't know that the first Black general for the nursing corps was General Hazel Johnson Brown, first African-American female in the U.S. Army, and nurse and educator who served in the U.S. Army between 1955 and 83. And in 79, she became the first Black general in terms of the U.S. Army Nurse Corps. And she was also the director of Walter Reed Army Institute of Nursing. Chappie James. I don't know who that young man is on the corner there, but he was the other general that penned me as a second lieutenant. And that was at my penning. And I was very proud when he handed me a set of wings and said, because I was the only cadet who had finished the flight training program and had my fixed wing rating when I left college. So he said, go forth and conquer. I said, I want to go to Air Force, but my PMS, Professor of Military Science, says, the Army paid your scholarship. You're going to the Army, boy. So I became an Army helicopter pilot, but I later got my fixed wing rating, multi-engine rating, and but I never went any further than that because my wife said she didn't want me to be an airline pilot. So no, I'm just throwing that as a little joke, sweetie. You know, I love you. But I would have, could have, should have. But Chappie James was so inspiring. He's from Pensacola, Florida. His father worked for a gas company. His mother taught and believed in him, and he believed in his dreams. And I keep telling young people, set a dream. You know, you have a short-term, midterm, and a long-term goal. Set your goals and then start working backwards. It's called back planning. And back plan to where you are today. Get your education, understand your footprint, how you can move, get to know people, talk to people. There's so many of us out here willing to help. And that's what help one another, people to doing that. But Chappie James, he's inspired to go out to Tampa. You see he's out there and as an inspiration to all the Air Force members in the room here. He's fought through 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and over 160 combat missions. Here's a gentleman that kicked me in the butt in ROTC, General Larry Ellis. He was a cadet commander when I was at Morgan, and he later became in charge of the Korean forces in Korea. He also worked with President Bush, and he did a lot of things, as you can see there, from Deputy Chief of Staff, Assistant Division Commander, Brigade Commander, Battalion Commander. He did so many things, and he was always a steady Eddie kind of guy. He was no nonsense, went to Vietnam, was a hero over there. And when he later was up here in Atlanta, when I saw him up there, he was in charge of the U.S. Army forces here in 2nd Army Division as well. Great guy who, again, inspired many people to move forward. The next person I think you all would recognize, Colin Powell. I was fortunate to meet him in 1975 as he was rotating out of South Korea. I was there in the 2nd Infantry Division, and he was leaving as a brigade commander. And how awe and inspiring he was in terms of a guy comes out of Jamaica, New York, but didn't, again, let where he started, like my dad said, don't let where you start stop you from where you can go. And we all know what he did, all the way up through being the advisor to 2 presidents, and got us through the wars, and General Schwarzkopf and others. And he just was really one of the people, was a role model that I kept trying to model myself after as I went through my career in the military. By the way, I went from active duty to a reserve and guard unit, kept flying. That's how I got into the corporate industry, and took those transferable skills of leadership and training and developing people and logistics planning to become the kind of guy that I have become over life. For the ladies who didn't know that women could get out there and fly combat helicopters, Venice Armour was one of the first for the Marines and the Navy. She was a female athlete, and she took on the challenge with the Navy and said, I'm going to be a pilot just like them guys. And we got a lot of ladies who are flying. As you saw at the Super Bowl, the whole flight was all female. That was something never would have been, people would never believe it would have happened 10 years ago. But we're progressing. And she flew an AH-1W Super Cobra, and she went to Afghanistan and Iraq as well. And now she writes books, and she's a motivational speaker, the 7-step battle-tested methods of accomplishing goals that matters. So she's been an inspiration. I've met her at a seminar maybe about 5 years ago. This gentleman is a guy who was my classmate. If you look down in the corner, there's 2 red circles. I'm sorry, the picture's pretty blurry. That's the only one I could find. But that's myself and General William Kip Ward, who became the first commander of Africa, called AFRICOM. And Kip had no dad. So when I hear people go, woe is me, I have no dad, I says, woe is you, you have a dad, and he's the big guy in the heaven. If you believe, you can receive. But Kip's mom had diabetes all her life, and she raised him and his sisters. And he and I went through Morgan State College, graduated, 82nd Airborne, jumped out of perfectly good airplanes with the parachute. And but he aspired and kept going up through the ranks and became a 4-star commanding general. And I'm very proud to have known him. He took over all of the continent of Africa under his control. And last but not least, this gentleman, you may have seen him at ladies and gentlemen, speakers of the House. He was the Sergeant at Arms at Congress up until January 2023. And he was a young man that was a DEA agent at the time, as well as a National Guardsman here in Florida with the 260th Military Intelligence Battalion. I was his battalion commander, and he was kind of distraught, but he wasn't going up in DEA. I said, that sounds like a personal problem. You're working for me now as a military intelligence officer. Get over it. Well, he later did aspire, and he worked all the way up just below the Secretary Comey. But he also kept going through the National Guard and Reserves, worked his way up, became the commanding general of the DC National Guard for the Air Force and the Army, and later got selected when President Trump was there to be the Sergeant of Arms for Congress until this recent term. But he is still a great friend, and that's me standing with him and General William Kip Ward. I like to just summarize with one little statement that I wrote that I thought would kind of bring us all together. And that's this: regardless of what your political, race, creed, or nation of origin, we are Americans first, and must strive, as all returns do, to continue to live for truth, always be fair, bring goodwill to all mankind, to better friendship, and may our efforts be beneficial to all who we want to be concerned for. For as Americans, we must remember we are God's creations. And above all physical, political, or racial differences, we must take to heart to remember what is stamped on our coin, e pluribus unum. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And may the truth of America's history, Black history, Hispanic history, Caucasian history, Asian history, I don't care what history, we're Americans first. And let's think about that as we go forward to make America better. Thank you.
Hold on, we'll ask some questions. Get some questions. Anybody have questions?
We need you in office, so do not give up.
I value and appreciate that. And in fact, I love you because of what you do down in Pine Hills and the Washington Shore. I see you everywhere. This guy's everywhere. And I saw the plot that your Boy Scout did. I saw it on the news. I've been encouraged by those that were actually against me to come back in Pine Hills and Washington Shores, throughout the Black community, Hispanic community, even the National Hispanic Committee, it's called National Hispanic Republican Assembly. They backed me, but the people didn't understand. But now they hear and they see that what they voted for may not be what they could. Yeah. I'm just saying this. I don't care what your political persuasion. I care about making this country what the founders had to be, it was intended to be. The Constitution, which they don't teach it, and I would make my cadets learn it. Please, if you got grandchildren, if you want to read a good book for them, read that to them and make sure they understand what it is, and maybe you'll better understand. You got that little baby over there, God bless you. Now make sure that child goes up and understand the Constitution from cover to cover. It's only that thick, and I'll give you one if you need one. And that for free if you go to Washington, D.C. But thank you, and I've been encouraged by a lot of political leaders to hang in there. They told me I was resilient throughout the fight. I'm in it to win it, and only God knows what the next step will be. Just stay tuned, more to follow.
So my question is, it's a very complicated issue.
Yes, sir.
But your simplest answer you can give, the respect level that the generations that are coming up now have is appalling. Teachers, we're losing teachers by the droves because it's not safe or rewarding to teach anymore because parents don't parent.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Quick solution.
Well, there's a political solution that has to be there. That's the school boards. We have to be involved. If every other week there's a school board meeting. If you haven't been to one, whether you currently have a grandchild or child in school or great grandchild, stop in and listen to what they are not doing. They're not doing the right things right. They're continually to perpetuate letting the system allow the kids to overrule the power of the teachers who should be in control. The teachers are not given the protection they need in the classroom. I even advocated when I was a teacher, I wanted cameras in every classroom. Oh, we can't do that. Privacy. Oh, but you can watch them up and down the hallways. We can watch them out on the playground. We can watch them, beat these kids up and then we go running to their rescue. We got one officer or two for campus and we don't have enough. And you don't want people like me who have been trained to protect. You don't want us to have a firearm to protect against these people who don't care about life. They call it a safe zone, but the criminals know what safe zones is. There's no one else to stop them. I think we can do better. We need to go and help our school boards change the rules so that we can be better. Yes, sir.
So you already made one suggestion in terms of potential curriculum changes for young kids, and I definitely took yours to heart. And I think that's actually a really good place to start in terms of first things to teach them is about the Constitution and make sure they understand that just in more literal or actual realistic terms. What other proposals do you think you would make, or what changes to the current school curriculum would you propose at this time? I know there's a lot of discussion about it.
Yeah.
I
I don't,
curious what your feelings
I concur with what Governor DeSantis has been and is doing. This 1619 stuff is for the birds, okay? History is already there. We're trying to create and rewrite history in a manner that is not appropriate. And knowledge is powerful, but using knowledge in an inappropriate way is what our problem is. And that's why I want all of us parents to get involved with the school boards, because the books that we want to, if we don't go and review the books, especially when you've seen books that have pornography in it and they want to bring it to the classroom, we say we're going to stop that kind of education about transgender and all that to young kids and up till the third grade. This should stop, period. You want to learn that out of school, that's your business. But don't bring it where you now monopolize the mindset of young people who don't have it. They have enough to worry about math, reading and writing, and and they don't understand science and biology. And they keep saying, well, it ought to be. That's not the question. What is? You got to deal with realities. So we have a lot of work to do as parents and friends, but you, young man, can make a difference for her by the time she's in the third grade, to maybe that she doesn't hear that garbage in the classroom. And she can learn the things that's going to make her a better person. Is it a she? I'm sorry. Okay. Make her a better lady, because I want her to be like my wife and my daughter. She's a proud young lady who doesn't put herself in a situation that she's going to be denied her rightful place on this earth.
Calvin, thanks for coming. Thomas Tart, 5th generation Floridian. Let me add to 2 of the stories you told. Colin Powell, young African-American boy in Brooklyn, they changed his name from Colin to Colin. He was named after Florida's first hero in World War II, Captain Colin Kelly from Madison, who flew the bomber that hit the flagship of the Japanese fleet out of Clark Field in the Philippines to start the World War II over there.
Amen.
Second, Benjamin O. Davis, Tuskegee Airman. Miss Roosevelt set it up there down the road from my opponent, Auburn. He set up the school for training pilots with white instructors. Where did he bring them for their advanced training? Tallahassee Del Mabry Field, which is now the community college. Benjamin O. Davis trained those men down the Gulf to go to east coast of Italy to defend our bombers. 2 great Floridians.
Right. That was beautiful. And thank you all. There's so much more. I mean, I had about 100, but I had to narrow it down. But I'd like to keep it in a military vein, because from the time I got that silver saber as a #1 cadet, I realized that the pride is abomination in terms of the Bible, but the pride in terms of being willing to stand up and defend and protect a country that's given me a right to achieve is the best kind of pride to have. And I'm proud to be an American, proud to be a Rotarian, and thank you all for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.